Hi, welcome to Bridges to Better Living. I am Dorothy Bridges, and I am thrilled that you are joining me here. I did an intro piece last night where I shared a little bit about our story and shared with you that 14 years ago, my husband and I were introduced to Dave Ramsey in his Financial Peace University class. And through that class, we learned his principles and put them into practice and found ourselves 2 years later financially, or I should say debt free, of $90,000, and we have lived debt free ever since. So I thought I would just share with you his baby steps and letting you know how that may help you become financially fit and may may answer some questions for you. So, anyway, tonight we're going to talk about the baby step number one, and the reason we have baby steps is because when you can break them down and focus on one thing at a time, it's so much easier. If you are trying to work on all areas at one time, it's much more difficult. I know for us, we were trying, for years, we tried to of course, just live and then, pay off debt. We tried to save for kids' colleges. We tried to save for retirement. We would just try to save for different things and, just never thought about saving for emergencies. And who would have thought we'd ever have one, right? But anyway, it just seemed like we could never get ahead and we can just never gain traction. So, through Dave Ramsey's baby steps, we focus on one thing at a time, and each step builds on another. So it's you got to learn how to crawl before you can walk, and then learn to run, and of course then we can sprint across that finish line. And so we're going to start with baby step number one, which for some people it's the easiest, and for some people it's the most difficult. So baby step number one is the baby emergency fund. It's $1,000 in the bank. So like I said, for some of you that may be very easy. You may already have that. For others, that may be very difficult, and you may say, I don't know how I can even come up with $1,000. I live paycheck to paycheck. There's no extra money anywhere in the budget. It's just not gonna work. But I promise you, and give you some tips on how you can make that work. First of all, do a budget. Budget is key. So if you do not do a budget, I'm going to encourage you to sit down and try doing a zero-based budget, which means you give every single dollar a name before the month begins, not after the month ends. You don't, look back and go, okay, let's take an assessment of where our money went. You plan before it ever begins. And so that way you are the one in control and you're telling your money where to go instead of getting to the end of the month and looking back and going, oh, this is where it went. So, yes, so budget is key, and that's number one. And if you will do a budget and you live by that budget, most times you will find money that you didn't even realize you had. Because when money is managed, it goes a whole lot farther. So that's first key. Other things you could do a garage sale. You could do, eBay. If you're talented and you can maybe a little crafty, you might even be able to set up an Etsy shop. Uber driver. You could, you may, like I said, may have to sell some things. There's just all kinds of ideas. Think outside of the box, and I promise you, if you get really serious about this and focus, you can come up with ideas, and it won't be long, and you'll have that $1,000 in the bank. And that $1,000 goes into savings, and that, as I said, it's a baby emergency fund. The key word there is emergency. And guess what? Christmas is not an emergency. Christmas comes every year in December. So we should be planning for that. So car repair is not an emergency. Um, you know, so we should be setting money aside for that every month. So anyway, you have to decide what is an emergency. Going through the drive-through at Starbucks is not an emergency. So you decide what is an emergency. If you're married, you need to sit down with your spouse and y'all need to decide together. And then put that $1,000 away, hide it, get it out of your checking account, put it in either a savings account somewhere where it's going to be a little more difficult for you to get a hold of, and not get your hands on it. So, no, baby step number one. Remember, $1,000 in the bank. Once we get that, then we can move on to baby step number two, which is the debt snowball. And I will share with you about that tomorrow night. And so, hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to post them below. And I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night. Thank you.